Hey guys, I just wanted to stop and give you a quick tip on mirroring since it's something that pops up a lot, right, with these symmetrical characters. And sometimes you want to be able to work with object symmetry and maybe it stops working in some places, like here I've just made changes, or other times it's partially implemented or something is broken or just won't turn on at all. So if you get into one of these situations, right, you can turn off your symmetry, hit spacebar to go to the quad view, or hit the button over here on the left. I usually choose the top view for this because it gives me a nice straight line, right, and is not as messy as the front view. The front view, you have to be kind of zoomed out pretty far to see all of the detail. Top view, right, I'll full screen by hitting space again. And then I will select, just using the regular selection tool in face mode, almost along the zero line here, right, the darker line on the grid. Select across the whole character. You can also hit 4 to go into wireframe mode. Makes things a bit easier to see if you've caught maybe some of the detail on the face and things if you've worked on a face. So pick a side to delete. Maybe you're going to keep the newer side, or maybe you made a mistake like I did, and maybe I want to delete the new side. So I hit delete. You can see my shoulder pads are not part of this main object yet. Alright, so that leaves me with a cut in half object. This works just as well with props and other pieces, right, as well as characters. So now I've got a whole bunch of history on my object. I probably just want to go ahead and delete that to make any algorithms that I apply to this, any tools function a little bit better. Another thing to consider doing is to do a freeze transformations. This means that if your character has any rotation, translation, or scale data, those will be set to 0, 0, and 1, 1. So with my model still selected, I've gone into object mode now, and I click on the little mirror geometry button here. You'll often see that this box pops up, but maybe nothing appears to have happened, right? So that's where these settings come in. The first one, let's look at the main ones first. Axis should be set to X if you've been modeling normally with your character facing forward. It's really going to depend on which side you've cut, whether you're going from the positive to the negative or the negative to the positive. Now I found that this very first setting here is often what causes it not to appear, right? Then the other settings you want to check, the offset determines, if you're going to make something ever so slightly skinnier or ever so slightly wider, right? You can make things wider up until a point, and that's dependent on this merge threshold and merge border. You don't always want to merge your object, right? Sometimes, say when I model these ears are just cones separate from the main piece at the moment. I haven't actually finalized my helmet, right? In that case, I wouldn't want to merge that geometry or merge the vertices down the center line. Now, the other time that can work against you is if this merge threshold is too high, it will start to merge verts along the center line here. So notice that because my merge threshold was all the way up to 9, right, it was catching parts of this helmet and making additional geometry changes that I wouldn't want. So usually I'm just going to set this to a very, very low number, like 0.1, 0.01. That way it's only going to catch the verts that are now like literally sitting on top of each other. Right, if I do not merge, then there will be two verts sitting on top of each other. In that case, right, what you might run into is like edge selection won't work. It will stop at that center line, right? Like anytime I select a vertical edge, it will seem to work fine, but it'll stop at the center line. The reason for that being that there are actually double verts stacked on top of each other here. Oh, I've got a whole extra model in there that I must have duplicated. If that happens, right, if you now have two parts that need to be sealed back up, you can go to vertex mode. Again, top view works best. Select a very, very thin box along the center line, right? So I start just almost on the line, and then I just drag down, and then I cross the line either way. From here, I believe it is under Edit Mesh, Merge, and then I tick the little box here. Again, I type in a very low threshold, 0.01, hit Apply, and it will merge those pieces together. I can make that more obvious if I have polygon count showing, because now I can count, I can see the vertex count, say if I'm selecting 236 vertices, and apply, it's knocked it down to 59. Now it should only be half of that, but like I just noticed a second ago, I seem to have duplicated my model once by selecting, let's see, yeah, he's definitely underneath there still. So I might undo stack, hopefully. Get back to where I was. Merge threshold. Okay. Alright, so that's all you need to really worry about. The only other stuff that you could, I guess, add after that, right, make sure merge border, 0.01. Sometimes you do want to, maybe 0.01 is a bit low here. Sometimes you do want to play with pushing the character in, right, just to make sure that your proportions are right, but let's just say this guy's okay. So I'll check the center verts, make sure there's only one in there. Right, so it's managed to merge correctly, and now this is all one piece. The goal being that now symmetry should work correctly all across the model. And that way any changes I make to one side will be reflected over on the other side. I wasn't 100% sure about this neck piece, but now I might have to live with it because it's welded in there. Let's do an increment and save, right? Anytime that I do any sort of change to my model where I feel like I might not be able to go back from there, I do an increment and save. That way, if I run into a wall now and I've realized, oh, some of the, say, the changes that I made in the armpits here didn't really work out, and go back to open scene, and I have all of these different versions, right? I can check the time that they were created. And get back just like so. So that's resetting your symmetry for using the mirror tool. Other things that you might find interesting or useful with mirror tools, or when you need a mirrored object, one thing you can do is you can scale into the negative. Right now, what that does also, though, in this case, is it has reversed the faces. Right, so I would have to go to Mesh Display, Reverse to fix that again. Now, the cases where that might be useful, right, are similar to where you might want to mirror merge. One other thing that is useful, I find, is the duplicate special tool underneath the edit menu. So let's say I'm working on an area very close up here, like I've been working on this tricky area where the shoulders meet the chest right now. If I'm working up close, but I still want to see the whole model or see the changes, especially while I still have my reference images up, what I might want to do is an edit duplicate special and create an instance of my object. Then I'll usually push it over, I don't know, some amount so that I can at least see it. Now I have a full copy of my model that when I edit the main model are reflected over here on the duplicate, and same with if I mess with the duplicate, they are also going to be reflected on the main model. So sometimes this is it's handy just to keep one eye on the full mesh while you are working up close, say if you're working in a different viewport or something, or you're finding the reference art distracting. Another thing about the reference art pieces is make sure that you add them to a layer so that you can quickly hide them. Right, so anytime that you want to add objects to a layer, you hit this little layer add and create new layer button on the far right of the layers section here. It will just call it layer number or something, right? So give it a name right away just so that you can keep track of these if you have more than, say, 3. Then these 3 little buttons here let you control various aspects. V being visible or invisible, right? To hide certain things from your scene if you're testing out different objects. R also being important in that R will turn it into a reference, which means that it is not selectable in your scene. Now T, I'm not sure what it stands for. It looks like it's turning it into a wireframe. Could be useful as well. Maybe say for if you have another base mesh in your scene and you want to overlay them. So generally, when I have reference images in my scene, like these were just imported using the view image plane, right? But now that they're in my scene, let's say I just delete the old layer. Notice when I delete layers, it leaves the objects intact. I'll select these image planes, right? I'm in object mode to do that. Select 1, select 2. Just add to a layer. And then I can either hide them quickly, or I can turn it into a reference layer, which means that as I'm selecting things on my object, right, I never accidentally select my reference layer, and I can't cut it. Basically can't manipulate it at all until I turn off the little R button. So that's all for quick tips, guys. Remember to use your increment and save more often than I do. I believe you can even turn on an autosave timer, right? So that it will save your project every, say, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But I haven't found that one yet. So if you find it, just post it in chat. Thanks.